We've got 2 new writers for this week's episode. Let's see how their first effort for MLP holds up with a Flurry of Emotions. Twilight has a jam-packed day planned as she agrees to read to a group of sick foals at the hospital. But when Shining Armor and Cadence make a surprise visit and ask her to take care of Flurry Heart for a few hours, Twilight can't turn down the chance to be the best aunt ever and agrees to watch her niece as well. But it isn't long before trying to handle 2 big responsibilities simultaneously proves to be more difficult than she anticipated. This episode comes to us from first-time writers Sammy Crawley and Whitney Wetter, who are perhaps best known for their work on the Nickelodeon series The Loud House. Now I'll be honest, I'd actually never heard of that show before the pair were announced as this episode's writers. I have since heard that it gets good reviews though, so maybe I'll give it a watch sometime. Consequently, I didn't know what to expect from these two for their first venture into writing for MLP, but after watching the episode, I was left feeling surprisingly impressed. For any show that decides to have an episode covering babysitting, the biggest problem is how limited they are with the setup. It's a pretty standard one. The Guardian is asked to watch the baby, thinks they'll have no trouble and a great day, and it turns out to be harder than they expected. Pony has done this before with the episode Baby Cakes in Season 2, which left me wondering and concerned about whether this was going to be little more than just a rehash. And at first, it looks like it's going to be, especially when an exhausted looking Shining Armor and Cadence overload Spike with tins of mashed peas and an excessive amount of nappies. Yeah, I know it's diapers to most of you, but
I'm British.
Luckily, despite certain similarities, A Flurry of Emotions does manage to be something different. And despite having some flaws, I think that between the two, it's the far superior episode. It may be unusual to see Twilight willingly compromise her organised plans for the day, but when she's just been given the chance to spend time with her baby niece, whom she probably doesn't get to see very often, it's difficult to blame her for agreeing to fit that into her day. And seeing Auntie Twily and her niece bonding in their own special way is simply adorable. Particularly during the first half where they play with teddy bears, fly around the castle, and play race carts in the toy store.
Hey! Alright! I'm gonna get ya! I'm catching up! Uh-oh. Sorry, Bug. Did that scare you? It's okay. It's just Auntie Twily.
One of the biggest criticisms of Flurry Heart's first appearance in The Crystalling is that she was written as nothing more than an inconvenient plot device. While I never disliked her, I also found it disappointing that she was indeed devoid of any real character. And other series such as The Simpsons, Rugrats, and more recently A Series of Unfortunate Events have all proven that it's not impossible to write infants without personality. Fortunately, this episode completely rectifies that mistake. Flurry is characterized as playful and energetic, yet also smart and skilled with her magic for her age, but this time not unrealistically so. In my view, she's not so much being developed as overpowered, but more like she's going to grow up to be a child prodigy, much like Twilight. But she's also shown to be of a rather sensitive disposition, becoming scared and uncomfortable around tense situations, like when Pound and Pumpkin Cake fight with each other over their toys. The wonderful character growth that Spike was treated with last season continues here, as he acts as the level-headed voice of reason, trying to keep everyone on track with the schedule. I find it a bit hard to believe that Shining Armor and Cadence really couldn't find anyone else to watch their daughter, but I suppose since they were in Ponyville at that moment, and it was a chance for Twilight to bond with her niece, and they did apologise for the short notice in the end, I can't be too critical. And their side story and an art exhibit for one of Shining's old friends has some notable moments too. Particularly humorous is when they look at One Piece and Shining asks,
Is this art or a mistake?
I am by no means an art expert either, so my immediate reaction would have been practically identical. But throughout this subplot, it is both amusing and quite clever how decidedly simple arts and crafts designs can be interpreted differently depending on who's observing them, and how they can end up eliciting a deeper emotional response, as each unique display reminds Shining and Cadence of their daughter, and how much they love her even though she's a handful. Moving along at a decent, if occasionally slow pace, the narrative has plenty of fun mishaps and interesting surprises. Like when the book that Twilight reads to the sick foals mentions the name Grogar. Now this is a name I've been waiting to hear for a long time. He was a great villain in the original show, and I've always wanted to see him appear in this series. In fact, I was hoping they were going to save him for the movie, so please let this be foreshadowing for the season finale. There's also mention of a book named Alien Alicorns vs. Space Pirates. Somebody send a message to GM Barrow or Mike Vogel about writing this as a real novel, because it sounds like an amazingly fun concept. The eventual tantrum from Flurry, as seen in the preview, is thankfully very short and relevant to the scene in which it happens. And after Twilight apologises for yelling at her when she unintentionally causes trouble looking for her stuffed animal, and for being inattentive, she learns a predictable but still effective and relatable lesson, as she remembers that the short amount of time she has with her baby niece should mean spending quality time with her above all else. The episode does have a few things that don't quite work though. Like, Twilight could have put Spike to more helpful use by asking him to get a number of the tasks done himself, which would have made things quicker and easier for them both, and the idea of the hospital allowing a healthy baby to be in the same room as a group of sick kids does sound quite implausible. But despite its issues, A Flurry of Emotions is an immensely cute episode with plenty to enjoy. For Sammy Crawley and Whitney Wetter's first episode, especially given the limitations of its premise, I was quite impressed, and as such I'm going to give it a gold star score of 8 out of 10.